Democratic presidential ticket appears to be set as former vice president and presumptive presidential nominee Joe Biden selects his own vice president, California Senator Kamala Harris.
Biden keeping his pledge he made months ago.
I would pick a woman to be my vice president.
Now with the chance to make history.
Both candidates, once considered bitter rivals on the campaign trail, now joining forces in an attempt to defeat President Trump in November.
I believe in Joe.
Democrats praising Biden's choice.
She also has this ability to really electrify an audience, and she is a great speaker. She's going to become a great vice president.
The president, however, critical of the decision.
A lot of people would say that might be the pick. I was more surprised than anything else because she did so poorly. Many people did much better than her in the primaries.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. The race for the White House took another turn today as Joe Biden there announced Senator Kamala Harris to be his running mate.
And Harris becomes the first black woman to be named on a major party presidential ticket. She would be the country's first female vice president should the duo win. Chief political correspondent Scott Thuman brings us balanced coverage on the choice.
With the announcement alone, they've already made history. Kamala Harris, the first black woman on a major ticket. And while the VP pick doesn't always have a huge impact, she could give a notable boost to Biden's momentum.
What the Biden campaign is hoping is that the urgency of the moment is the catalyst that creates excitement for, African-American voters, college-educated women, all of these voting blocs that have felt ostracized.
Seen as a safe and smart pick, Harris was already one of the best-known candidates with a strong resume, though her time as a prosecutor will also be challenged for alleged missteps on wrongful convictions, and progressives complain she didn't fight enough for criminal justice reform. And she was one of Joe Biden's toughest primary opponents.
She was very disrespectful to Joe Biden, and it's hard to pick somebody that's that disrespectful. When she said things during the debates, during the Democrat primary debates, that were horrible about Sleepy Joe.
Nonetheless, she is seen as someone who can hold her own, passionately state the case against President Trump, and easily step into the position.
She is somebody who balances this ticket in every way, in the sense that she is from the West Coast. She represents a younger generation. She also is a woman and a person of color. So there are a lot of attributes she brings to this ticket.
And we'll finally see that ticket together tomorrow when Kamala Harris and Joe Biden will formally debut as running mates at an event in Wilmington, Delaware. In Washington tonight, I'm Scott Thuman.
Biden's announcement came in the middle of a big election day all across the country.
That's right. 5 states held their partisan primary elections today, including Wisconsin. Fox 11's Katrina Nickel got reaction from people at the polls. She brings us balanced news coverage.
Politicians and voters in Wisconsin's partisan primary have a range of thoughts on vice presidential nominee Kamala Harris.
Historic pick brings a lot of folks to the table. It brings a lot of representation to the table that we've never had before.
Assembly Democrat Amanda Stuck is excited for what Harris symbolizes.
To classrooms with fourth graders and had young girls still ask me if a woman can truly be president. It really is exciting to see a woman be picked for this office and to run with Biden.
Republican Congressman Glenn Grothman thinks Biden made the wrong decision.
I don't think it's good for the country, though. If something would happen to Joe Biden, I would feel much better with a Val Demings or a Amy Klobuchar than I would a Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris would kind of scare me if she was ever the president.
Senator Tammy Baldwin was also on the short list of possible vice president picks for Joe Biden. And although Baldwin wasn't chosen, she congratulated Harris in a tweet saying, "Kamala is an inspiring and historic choice for Joe Biden, and I'm going to work hard to make sure we make history in November by electing Joe and the first female vice president." People out voting in Green Bay also had opinions to share. Some happy.
I think she's a very strong woman. She's got her very opinions, and I think she's for the people, for us middle class too.
Others hoping that being a woman was not the only reason for her choice.
I sincerely hope that gender wouldn't play a role either way in his choice. I would never want someone to pick me just because of my gender.
Some critical of her 2020 presidential campaign, which was suspended in December.
He was not one who fared particularly well. So it was a little bit surprising for me to see that she was the ultimate choice.
Harris is expected to formally accept the nomination during the Democratic National Convention. In Green Bay, Katrina Nickel, Fox 11 News.
Governor Tony Evers and Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes also applauded the Harris pick. The Trump campaign in Wisconsin says her addition makes the Biden-Harris ticket the most radical ticket in history. And coming up in our next half hour, we're going to take a deeper dive into who Harris is and look into the politics of the pick. And today, you decided other matchups that will be on the ballots come November. It was partisan primary day in Wisconsin with national, state, and local representatives all vying to move forward to that general election.
With the ongoing pandemic, though, many people voted absentee. Still, there were plenty of voters who showed up in person. And we have team coverage now on how the polls are managing here in Northeast Wisconsin. Let's go first to Fox 11's Ben Krumholz, who's live in Green Bay for us. And Ben, is there anyone still waiting in line to vote?
Michelle, there are no lines, no voters, in fact, no poll workers. We're the only ones left here at the old Sears building, which hosted about a quarter of the city's voting wards today. Certainly a far cry from what was experienced back in April, about an hour after the polls closed, when hundreds of people were still outside waiting in line to vote. The last few months, city leaders have been doing all they can to avoid a repeat of April. And by the looks of things, it seems like they were successful.
Walked right in and walked out. Didn't take 5 minutes, so it was no problem.
At 5 p.m., there wasn't a wait to vote at Green Bay's largest polling site. On the opposite side of the city, the same could be said at UW Green Bay.
I think people got the message to vote absentee.
Based off what Fox 11 could find, that seemed to be the case. The most action was at City Hall, with people dropping off absentee ballots outside and poll workers processing them inside. Green Bay residents requested more than 15,000 absentee ballots, a city record.
I think voters were concerned about waiting in line again, even though it is a beautiful day, but certainly nobody wants to wait in line to vote. That's terrible.
For the spring election, some voters waited in line more than 4 hours.
It took me 3.5 hours to... It was still worth it to vote, though.
We didn't bother.
In April, the city consolidated its 31 polling locations to 2 after all but 19 poll workers backed out due to coronavirus concerns. For this election, the city had 17 poll locations and 250 poll workers, including 50 National Guard members. Extra help the city declined in spring due to training concerns.
The way that the lines form is because there aren't enough poll workers. And like I said, we have a really good complement of poll workers for this August election.
It went really well. It was really organized, went real quick.
The smoothness has elections organizers and voters hopeful for November.
If it's like this, it shouldn't be a problem.
Now, obviously, November will be a whole different ballgame compared to today, but the city is hoping to have about the same number of polling locations then. However, it is hoping to have about 100 more poll workers than it did today. For more on how voting went in the Valley, we're going to check in now with Fox 11's Sierra Trojan. Sierra?
Well, it's a similar scene in Appleton. One poll worker told me at their location, just one person had to wait in line to vote all day. So overall, things seem to be going smoothly.
The foot traffic's been quieter than most.
Absentee ballots are to thank for that.
So I'd say we're probably 1/3 foot traffic, 2/3 absentee ballots.
Poll workers tell Fox 11 they've seen an increase in people dropping absentee ballots off in person.
That wasn't nothing that happened very often before, and there's been a couple dozen probably today.
Do you think more people have dropped them off today than in April?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I would say.
In April, more than 700 Appleton voters received their ballots too late to vote.
Unfortunately, there were some circumstances that were kind of out of our control.
After a Postal Service investigation, the agency says a third-party mailer dropped the ballots off too late to mail on Election Day. Jane Oliver dropped her absentee ballot off in person.
With all the stuff that's going on with the Postal Service and they're cutting hours, and I just feel better if I drop it off myself. I just really wanted to make sure it got there.
Abby Keefe requested her ballot too late to mail back.
And didn't get it in enough time to mail it, so I lived close enough by that I decided that it was worth dropping it off.
Appleton Chief Election Inspector Carl Kaufman says things have been smooth sailing at his polling location.
I've been doing this for a long time, and I have no doubts about the integrity of the elections and the way we conduct the polls.
Poll workers tell me they haven't had any issues processing ballots, and they're confident that they will have unofficial results tonight. Reporting live in Appleton, Sierra Trojan, Fox 11 News.
All right, Sierra, thank you. Other big news that we are following.